The Nigerian Immigration Service, NIS, on behalf of the federal government, has placed the sponsors of the nationwide protest on the watch list. The Comptroller General of the service, Kemi Nandap, disclosed this information at the Defense Headquarters in Abuja. Ms. Nandap stated that these individuals who are in diaspora would be arrested upon their arrival in Nigeria. The protest began on August the 1st and has escalated into violence in some states. On our show today, we have an international security risk management consultant, retired Commodore Abimbola Ayuba, joining us in our Abuja studio for this discussion. Thank you very much for joining us at this point.
Thank you very much, Theophilus. Thank you, Olamide. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Okay, so the federal government has placed sponsors of the nationwide protest on its watch list. From your own view, why do you think this is necessary?
Well, thank you very much, Theophilus. The placement of persons or indeed businesses on watch lists is a global practice. And the objective is to keep a tab on the activities of these persons or businesses or interests in order to monitor the activities which are considered inimical and that can jeopardize national security. This is the main reason why persons are usually selected and kept on this watch to monitor their movements, to monitor perhaps movements of their associates in order to build a bigger picture of what they are likely to be doing on the long term. Every activity of these persons are deemed from the lens of government and security agencies to be likely cause a breach of peace and national security. Hence the need to impose this lists on suspected citizens and indeed other foreign nationals who are known to come into Nigeria for businesses and to ensure that they are monitored closely. And of course, when they are found culpable with enough evidence, the immigration, the DSS, have every right to arrest them, rein them in, interrogate them, and if need be, charge them to a competent court of jurisdiction. Thank you.
And from what you have said, that this is global standard, this is what is done internationally. Really, some would say that perhaps a more proactive approach should have been used in addressing this. The Comptroller General of Immigration said that they will be arrested as soon as they come into the country. Let's not forget that the protest is still ongoing. Perhaps we should be using the Interpol at this time to, bring them in, to question them, rather than just, waiting for the protest to go out of hand and waiting for themselves, for them to come into the country.
Well, it cannot be seen as double standards, in my view, because the Interpol has its own functions, and the Interpol is simply international police, and of course, there is always a multilateral agreement between Nigeria and several other policing actors situated all over the world. And of course, from the lens of the immigration chief, of course, the immigration service is charged purely with the movements of people, persons, coming through our system in terms of immigration and indeed emigration. And so perhaps during the visit of the immigration boss to DHQ, it was thought that it was an information which she decided to pass to the CDS and his team. Notwithstanding, I believe that the NIA, the National Intelligence Agency, which indeed has more leverage to do this, will keep a tab. Don't forget that there are agreements between nations on such issues. And of course, when it becomes obvious that a person or a group of persons, or indeed their businesses, are found to be disruptive to our national security, these agencies know how to reach out to their sister or counterparts in other nations. And of course, such a person can be picked up even in a foreign airport and deported directly to Nigeria. So I don't see double standards here. Sometimes security activities are multifarious, and sometimes they happen concurrently. The only thing is that there's need to have a common clearinghouse so that we don't have duplicity of efforts which impinges on our financial capacity to run our security agencies.
Okay, so the Immigration Service had said that some actions have been taken, and of course they also mentioned that some of them reside abroad, some of the sponsors of the protests reside abroad. But one of the actions that were taken, that was taken rather, is the freezing of their bank accounts. Now, some people have opined that this is a violation of their fundamental human rights, since you have mentioned that they are on your watch list and you haven't arrested them. It's possible that there's a possibility that you might not, the Immigration Service might or might not have evidence against them. So why freeze their accounts?
Well, it's a financial preemptive action necessary to ensure that the funds belonging to these suspects that are lodged in Nigerian banks are monitored. If you do not freeze such account or accounts, they are likely to be used freely to influence insurgencies, to pay rioters, to engage in propaganda, which all impinge on national security. So freezing those accounts is a temporary measure to ensure that they do not find funds, at least within the borders of Nigeria, to be used freely against the nation and its citizenry. This is my view on this.
But if that's the case, don't you think they can also get funds through other means? So does it mean that the Immigration Service will have to expand its horizon beyond the regular bank accounts?
The issue is that the Immigration Service will place persons on watch list. The Immigration Service is not charged to chase people's accounts. The EFCC is there, the DSS is there, like I said, the Defense Intelligence Agency is there. If they have enough evidence to think that some individuals are bringing in funds. Don't forget that bank accounts are easily traceable and they can be tracked. So within this period leading to the protest, of which everybody has alluded to, that every Nigerian has a right to protest, but of course, there is always a limit to human rights, especially when it affects the rights of others as well. So when they find that funds have been trickling in or being flooded into certain accounts, there is need to, first of all, proactively block those accounts and ensure that they no longer can withdraw money. It doesn't mean that the monies will not be released if it is found out that the people are genuinely in bringing in funds for other purposes. But you know, before an order is given to block people's account, there must be some degree, some iota of proof that these funds are being distributed to certain people who are also linked to the leadership of some of these protest groups. And this is why it is a preemptive measure to nip that on the bud. Like you said, funds can still come from parallel sources, maybe from dollar sources, which of course we see how serious the government is in plugging loopholes in the black market and all that. So it also requires all of society action to ensure that we do not allow our nation's security to be sabotaged. And because if it does, all the plans and programs of government are likely to be distorted or disrupted, or even derailed. And that will impose more hardship on Nigerians, as it were. So it is important that we, like I said, as individuals, as groups, recognize and realize that it is our collective responsibility to support government and its agencies, despite the fact that there are issues of hunger, unemployment, and all other difficulties which impinge on people's rights, especially as components of national security like food security, health security, are dangerously being affected. There is need for us on the long run to act in concert to keep our nation afloat and prevent hawks and enemies of the state from infiltrating our borders, particularly borders that are contiguous to nations that are pulling out of ECOWAS, particularly Niger Republic, that are even excised yourself from ECOWAS. And we need to be very careful and need to put those states contiguous to Niger Republic on a very high security alert. Thank you, Theophilus.
And, talking about those who try to take undue advantage, some persons have argued that our borders are quite porous, and these individuals are really not, Northerners or Nigerians, so to speak. Some of them had to pass through our borders. So for this protest, we could identify two different sets or group of persons. Those who took advantage to loot, and another set who took advantage to, register a particular flag in the minds of Nigerians. But in terms of the risk that this poses to Nigeria, talk to us about that if this situation is not addressed immediately.
Thank you very much, Olamide. It speaks to what we have started discussing from the beginning of this segment, that government needed to take certain steps, which to my mind is in order. And of course, coming from the history of our security management, I think more than ever before, the security agencies have been more at alert and have been able to do, first of all, putting these suspects on a watch list, and secondly, blocking accounts of those who are suspected. But let me say this, that there are issues that are historical with our boundary communities. That's the issue of cross-cultural and socio-economic affinities of border communities whose kith and kin live on both ends of the border. These kind of people don't see even smuggling as an offense. They see it as making a livelihood. And sometimes you will realize that in the peak of this insecurity, people in Zamfara, in Katsina, sometimes we go over across the border to Niger to sleep, to avoid being attacked at night. In the daytime, they come back to Nigeria to trade. and in the evening they go back to their kith and kin across the border. So this speaks to the need for government and its agencies, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a lead agency, the NIA, the DSS, the Armed Forces through the ambit of the Chief of Defense Staff, that's DHQ, and the Ministry of Defense, to begin to work and infiltrate these communities and ensure that their activities are closely monitored to prevent the people on the other end from sympathizing or indeed providing support directly or indirectly to their kith and kin on Nigerian side of the border. These issues of cross-cultural affinities and their socio-economic order has been as old as the partitioning of Africa. Our nations that are affected by this are several, and most of them are still in conflict till today. If you look at the situation in Eastern DRC, you will see what I'm saying clearly, that on one side you find Burundi, you find Rwanda, you find Zambia, and all these countries on the eastern side of the Lake Tanganyika. So you will still see kith and kin crossing the Tanganyika when it's convenient and when it's not convenient. So it's left for us to manage proactively and dynamically issues concerning our boundaries. So it is true also that the borders are indeed very porous, and it requires new thinking. It requires new thinking in several ways, that we should not be leaving our spaces, especially very sensitive spaces, unpoliced or under-policed, because those who need those spaces to thrive in their criminal activities will migrate into them and use them for purposes that may be inimical or dangerous to our national security. Thank you.
From what you have just said, how do we manage to proactively to secure our borders when we have over 1,000 illegal entry points in Nigeria and only 85 or so, 84 rather, legal entry points into the country? And do we have enough men to man all of these, both legal and illegal, entry points in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Theophilus. That's a very beautiful question. You see, the world has moved beyond manual activities, human-related activities, and they've moved on to the usage of satellite imagery, the use of drones, and the use of fencing of borders. As you see, the United States is plagued with a lot of problems of border insecurity, mass influx of illegal immigrants, especially in the southern borders around Texas alone, shares about 3/4 of the United States space. And of course, the governors in these areas have a responsibility. As it is said, it is not just the onus of the federal government to keep pumping its own limited funds at things that the states can do. So there is need for, first of all, for us to look again at all these exclusive lists and residual concurrent lists and apportion direct responsibilities to state governments. Hence, all the security funds that have been going into their hands, they need to account for them. And again, there's need to move some structures to the borders. If you go to some of these other countries that have issues like us, they have moved facilities to the north. For instance, you could move some units of energy companies into the areas within very contiguous to the Sahel, who can use solar panels, who can use windmill to power electricity. You move them forward. You build airfields towards the border. They move military units. They move ministries. They make commercial activities to flow in these areas, and thereby forming a buffer along the the borders. And I keep saying it on this program and some other programs have appeared on, that countries that are afflicted and plagued by boundary issues must learn how to fence their borders. Everybody say, how do you do that? Then I keep saying that all these monies that are being taken and pilfered from state coffers, if you commit them systematically into fencing especially our porous borders, those who are considered very, very, very important and for our national security, we will be able to restrict. There's a way you do that. And I gave an example, and I will still give it here. The Kenyan Defense Forces are given the mandate to build fences across their eastern borders to prevent all these insurgent groups from having easy access. And they are making serious progress, slow but serious progress. The army, in armed forces, can actually be mandated as part of their military aid to civil authority to start surveying. The army has a vast reserve of knowledge in this. The army engineers and their survey units and all sort of critical elements that can help to construct. You must see it as a national duty for us to spend money to protect our borders and, of course, rein in our revenues, redirect our lost revenues that have been taken across the borders, like food, in all the reports we are getting, because of the fact that the CFA is having some strength over the Naira. Nigerians and not government are smuggling food to Niger Republic, to Chad, to Cameroon, so for their own personal gains, which is, I consider, very unpatriotic. So before you blame the government for not doing this, let every Nigerian see it first as a responsibility to do the right things and ensure that our level of patriotism rises. And this also brings up the need for our schools to begin to teach civics. When I was young, I was in school, we had a subject called civics, and there they were taught our responsibility as individuals to government, our responsibility, the government's responsibility to us, the issue of the flag, the importance of the flag, recitation of the item. These were things that we imbibed as children, and up to today, people in my generation will attest to this. But that has been lost to the extent that even history, I think, is a new attempt to reintroduce history to schools. When this young population don't even know what has transpired before, they just want to go after all the trend that is happening in other countries, like building, carrying flags, Russian flag. If they know how Russians are living in their own country, how their human rights have been badly impeded, how the average Russian cannot say a word against government, how the brutality in which the Russian government deals with its citizens that are not comporting. I think the Nigerian government should be commended for managing these recent conflicts more efficiently. And the governors, the local government chairmen, they all have responsibility. And lastly, before I pause, the issue of state policing, the issue of community policing should not be ignored. I think somewhere in the Legislative National Assembly, there is dialogue going on, and they must expedite all this as priority so that we begin to nip issues on the board. If there are problems in communities, it will be nipped in the board, rather than everybody allowing these things to escalate to the extent that people who don't love this country, and because they are positioned carefully abroad, will have because of the weakness of the Naira, begin to lure our already weak, angry youths into violent extremism. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I also want to, pick it up from what you have mentioned as regards, teaching the children history of their nation and not, comparing themselves to other nations. Security has moved from just the role of the security agencies, but also, to the civilians and the role of the civilians in identifying some of these threats when they see them. I'm sure some of those persons who, come across the border or come into the country through this porous borders, some persons identify them and do not report these cases to the security agencies. So how do we begin to imbibe the need for, awareness in areas of, security? When we see threat like this, it is identified and reported immediately, and not just, joining some persons to become a tool of subversion.
Well, thank you very much, Olamide. You've said it all. There is need for a rapprochement with the government. Must review its relationship with the citizenry, managing and informing citizens, getting them to understand their roles and responsibilities in line with security requirements of the nation. And I say this on this network and other networks, particularly on this network, that there are plethora of veterans, retired military, police, immigration, name them DSS officers, that are indeed retired and live in these communities. Up to what level? Why is government not engaging with these people who already have very sound knowledge of security, and they have skills that can be utilized to mobilize citizens, educate them, and of course, train them to build resilience, train them to understand the need for reporting, and the government should provide reporting lines, safe reporting lines, that will make people confident enough to report sightings of all suspicious activities without fear of reprisal, which has been a common issue, that when citizens report something to government agencies, security agencies, some moles within the security agencies, we go back to insurgents or criminals to report that Mr. S or Ms. Y gave us the information. There must be a new thinking. And I don't think it's big deal. The defense secretaries, the Ministry of Defense is well structured to bring back all these veterans to be used. There are lots of skills that are lying in the hands of these people, including retired police officers, like I said, and DSS officers. Bring them up, equip them, motivate them slightly, because of course their pensions are little and far between. Add a little bit of allowances for them to do this, and you will see marked improvement. You will see that there's a new safety net around, especially around our vulnerable areas. And indeed, in all those communities that are oil bearing, oil producing, where we keep having plethora of problems by pipeline vandalism, oil, illegal oil bunkering, stealing of crude oil. This can be applied as a strategy across the nation and even abroad to help the country to manage better its national security. Thank you, Olamide.
International Security Risk Management Consultant, retired Commodore Abimbola Ayuba. Thank you very much for your insightful discussions this morning. Thank you.